Part 1. The Unthinkable War of 2026. March 2026. The world watches in stunned silence as the Middle East ignites. Operation Epic Fury has begun. With over 5,000 targets struck in just 10 days, Donald Trump has done what many thought impossible. He has moved from a deal-maker to a war-maker. As the Iranian Navy lies at the bottom of the ocean and the regime's leadership structure fractures, one question remains. How did a man who promised to end forever wars become the most devastating god of war in modern American history? Part 2. The Madman Theory and the Psychology of Uncertainty. Many will ask, how can a president who prides himself on being a peacemaker order the obliteration of thousands of targets overnight? The answer doesn't lie in the munitions, but in a brutal psychological game that Trump has mastered. To understand why Iran collapsed so swiftly, we must dive into his shifting military worldview, a place where uncertainty is weaponized to crush an enemy's resolve without the need for a decades-long quagmire. In Donald Trump's psychology of war, the silence of the generals is sometimes more terrifying than the roar of artillery. He does not use the military to seize land, but to seize the mind of his opponent. By applying the Madman Theory, Trump transforms America from a guardian of order into an unpredictable force. 1. The Madman Theory in a new era. In military psychology, Trump has revived Richard Nixon's doctrine, but at a more pragmatic level. The core psychology is, make your opponent believe you are willing to do the unthinkable. Analysis. By issuing extreme statements, such as fire and fury toward North Korea, or threats to wipe out Iran's nuclear capabilities, he creates an information blind spot. World leaders accustomed to diplomatic stability fall into a state of freeze because they cannot calculate the next move of someone who follows no rules. 2. Turning uncertainty into negotiating leverage. Instead of using the military as a tool of invasion, Trump uses it for psychological warfare. Weaponizing anxiety. Neurological studies show that uncertainty causes the human brain to amplify fear and impairs decision-making. Trump exploits this to soften opponents before they ever sit at the negotiating table. Example: the sudden order to strike 5,000 targets in Iran in March 2026 served as an extreme psychological shock, causing the enemy to lose total control because the scale and speed far exceeded all traditional defense scenarios. 3. The bully's pulpit psychology. Psychologists note that Trump's style is one of dominance rather than discussion. He doesn't want to win a war of attrition. He wants a visible victory, one where the opponent must publicly admit defeat or concede to survive. Tactics. He often sets extreme demands, like forcing NATO to increase spending, then executes a symbolic but devastating military action, like the assassination of General Soleimani, to prove he is not bluffing. When an opponent fears you might do anything, they tend to concede early to avoid the worst-case scenario. That is how he wins without getting bogged down in 20-year wars. For Trump, war is a test of will, where the one who makes the opponent doubt themselves the most holds absolute power. But uncertainty is not just a psychological deterrent. For Trump, it is a tool to manipulate pieces on the global chessboard. To see how he turns weapons into leverage, we look to the battlefield of Ukraine. There, he does not act like a politician dreaming of democracy, but like a pragmatic god of war, one who knows exactly when to hand over a javelin sword and when to use it to force a peace deal. Part 3. Ukraine Tactics The psychology of a powerful creditor. 1. The javelin stick psychology. In negotiation psychology, Trump applies the principle: give the opponent the tools to defend themselves, but retain control over their lifeline. Analysis: his approval of Javelin missile sales early in his first term wasn't out of mere empathy. It was a psychological blow intended to send a message to Moscow. I am willing to provide fangs to your enemy if you don't play by my rules. Leverage mindset. He views weapons as capital investment. Once invested, he has the right to demand a return, which, in 2026, is submission at the peace table. 2. War as a sunk cost. Unlike politicians who view Ukraine as an outpost of democracy, Trump's psychology views this war through the lens of economic efficiency. Cutting losses. He believes every war has a break-even point. When the cost of aid exceeds strategic benefits, he does not hesitate to use psychological pressure to force Ukraine to concede land or Russia to halt its advance. Commentary. In Trump's mind, no war is priceless. Everything has a price tag, and he is the one who decides when the auction ends. 3. The power broker mentality. Trump loves the feeling of being the only person who can solve a problem that has the rest of the world deadlocked. Strategic ego. He uses the Ukraine war to prove his status as the irreplaceable man. By creating complex personal relationships with both Putin and Zelensky, he places himself at the center of a psychological triangle where both sides must remain wary and seek his approval. In Ukraine, Trump does not act as a traditional ally. He acts as a creditor demanding the return of global stability. His psychology is clear. Weapons are leverage, and peace is a transaction. Part 4. Campaign Epic Fury 2026, when words give way to destruction. If in Ukraine, Trump was a calculating power broker using weapons to force peace, then in Iran 2026, he completely shed his diplomatic robes to don the armor of a destroyer. When containment failed and red lines were crossed, the God of War decided to end the game in the most brutal way. A preemptive strike aimed at erasing a regime. 1. The once-and-for-all mindset. In his previous term, Trump used economic pressure, but by 2026, his psychology shifted toward finality. Analysis. Trump believes long wars, like Afghanistan, are an insult to American power. Therefore, he applies strike-to-neutralize tactics. Action. Striking over 5,000 targets in 2 weeks wasn't about occupying land. It was the uprooting mentality, completely erasing Iran's ability to resist so that America never has to return to the Middle East again. 2. Decapitation strategy. Instead of fighting a conventional army, Trump aimed directly at the superstructure, striking symbols, removing the most powerful figures, such as Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, is a fatal blow to the psychology of the entire regime. Goal: Trump wanted to create a power vacuum and internal chaos, forcing Iran to collapse from within without putting boots on the ground. 3. Absolute sovereignty. In the 2026 war, Trump did not wait for consensus from the UN or multilateral alliances. Mindset: America first, and America decides. He acted based on core U.S. interests with a defiance of international norms. This is when the God of War image is most vivid: absolute and non-negotiable power. Part 5. The legacy of a pragmatic commander-in-chief. As the smoke over Tehran clears, the world realizes a new order has been established in less than a month. But behind the smoke and the roar of jet engines, what is the true legacy Donald Trump leaves for history? Was he a warmonger, or simply a pragmatic god of war who used destruction to buy a lasting peace? 1. Peace through terror. Trump does not believe in peace based on paper treaties that are easily torn. His core psychology is peace is only sustainable when the opponent is too terrified to start a war. Analysis. By striking Iran directly in March 2026, he sent a psychological message to the world. The price of challenging America is total destruction. This is how he resets the world order without the need for complex alliances. 2. Redefining the God of War for the 21st century. Usually, a God of War implies a bloodthirsty conqueror, but for Trump, it is the psychology of the Terminator. Mindset, he is a god because he possesses the power to end a decades-long game in just weeks. His legacy is not occupied territory, but a Pax Americana built on absolute deterrence. 3. The return of nationalistic ego. In terms of crowd psychology, Trump's decisive military actions feed the American voters' need for a strong man. Result, he transformed economic anxiety and America's declining status into a sense of heroic military victory. He didn't change the world with words. He changed it by forcing the world to accept his strength. Is Donald Trump a god of war? Perhaps the answer lies in the results of March 2026. He didn't build peace with hollow promises. He built it with steel and fire. By combining cold negotiation psychology with overwhelming military might, Trump proved, in a volatile world, the strongest is the one who dares to strike first. His legacy is not endless wars, but a tough, pragmatic America that makes its enemies tremble before they can even draw their swords.